All right, all right. Final whistle's officially here. Dan, we can finalize the table in terms of at least where Chelsea stand and give maybe the best part of this Thiago Silva a decent sending off as he moves on.
Well, obrigado on the day to one Thiago Silva, and obviously the club had plenty of celebrations for him. The supporters pre-hand, We Are the Shed, and all of those who donated and helped support with the massive tifos, multiple, not just one, for Thiago Silva on the day. Really, really nice. It would have been great if that that last header just happened to go in. It would have been the perfect sending off. I mean, also maybe a perfect sending off that Anthony Taylor has another terrible day out, and we can have another photo of him going after Thiago Silva, going after Taylor for terrible decisions. But I'm not going to spend too much time on the negative because Chelsea finished sixth in the Premier League table. We end the season on the win. We end the season on a run of wins. We head into the summer feeling better about where we were back in December. And so to me, it's a lot of positives. So I'm going to take positives away from the day. I'm going to celebrate the fact that Man City got it done. Arsenal, another title race in the mud. It's all good. It's all good, Nick.
Yeah, really excited. Wasn't our best performance, but it didn't need to be. The results is what matters on a day like today. I think Chelsea have historically been in these last day situations where, you may not play your best or you may scramble it across the line and win. And that's really all that people will remember. I think they'll remember Thiago Silva's last game at the Bridge. I think they'll remember the way the team fought all the way to the end and, are now in sixth after a season where, it was a lot of ups and downs. So we just need Man City to do it one more time in the FA Cup final, Brandon, and we will be in the Europa League next season.
Yeah, so as it stands, obviously full-time Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 1, the final match of the season. Moises Caicedo casually hitting a long pass from half, 17th minute, opened up scoring. Then Raheem Sterling, 48th minute, which is good, and I'm glad we got it because immediately after we went up 2-1, they got the own goal off of Benoit Badiashile in the 49th minute. Pretty much from there, it was just kind of back and forth until the very end when we absolutely almost had a worse day out, Dan. But Conor Gallagher with play of the match, getting that block in right at the very end, letting former Blue Dom Solanke, who has had many goals this season, sky over when he should have had a tap in.
Nah, I mean, the Caicedo goal is the moment of the match. Absolutely. The Gallagher hustle back to prevent a goal was fantastic and absolutely one of the best moments of the match. Caicedo goal, and now the future decade of shoot from the halfway line that he is going to get every single time from the supporters. Yeah. It's going to be incredible. I cannot wait to be back at Stamford Bridge sometime next season to see Caicedo playing and to join in the shouts after what is a goal of the season. That is the Premier League goal of the season, done and dusted. Re-award whatever the selection was previously, because that is now it.
Yeah, it was very, if you're of a certain age, very John Obi Mikel of the crowd today. Every time he touched the ball, it was shoot, or he scores when he wants. I absolutely loved it. And, we've been talking about him for the last 3-4 weeks. Like, he's been contributing more offensively. He's been, really impactful in every single game that he's played. And, super happy for him, Brandon, to get this. To get a goal, to get it this way at home, last day of the season, vibes are high. Clearly, all he needed to do was go blonde for the goals to start flowing.
Hopefully it is that easy. It's a little concerning him going off and young Leslie, who hasn't played in many months, many minutes, come on. But hey, the team rallied to get it done. One thing I do want to point out is how we ended the season here, right? That's 5 wins in a row. The only other 2 teams to do that, City and Arsenal. Right. So the form of which we ended was barely better than Crystal Palace, who ended up climbing to 10th and have had an amazing end of the season as well. But again, not unbeaten, but 5-game win streak to end the season is impressive. We needed a run. They picked the exact right time to do it. Thought we were going to run out of gas a little bit, but thankfully, the biggest change has to be the lack of injuries. Everybody came healthy right at the very end. Trevo was rock solid as well when he came in. I think he's a big part of this run as well. So I think definitely we are blessed with things going our way when most of the season they did not. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I stand, is that a little bit lucky, but it turns out when this team is healthy, we're actually not a bad team.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how, we'll talk a lot about preseason. We'll talk a lot about, how next season's going to start, all this sort of stuff, right? But it'll be really, really interesting to see how they manage preseason for some of the big impact players that miss large chunks of this season. Your Nkunku's, your Reece James's, all that sort of stuff. Because again, you just feel like if you don't have 14 injuries consistently throughout the season and you have a full complement of players to choose from, there's a really interesting team here. And if you do get Europa League, that means there will be more matches for this interesting team to play and learn from and continue to grow. So, it's a, I think, Brandon, going back to you on this, like, I think it's a very interesting place to be for Chelsea, where maybe some players turned up at the end of the season that are going to have them reconsidering transfers and the way they're managing minutes next year and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, really, really pleased. And hopefully the injury bug does not hit us again.
Well, I mean, that is one thing that massively needs to get sorted out over the summer, but we've got a little bit of time to sort that out. Dan, as we look through this match, obviously you did the preview with Sam. Excellent as always. With the lineup, with the way, thankfully, I think it's good for us that Dom Solanke did not get to start. Had a little bit of a knock, which is obviously good for us. But I guess moving to you, Nick, like once we look at how this is lined up, maybe a little bit surprising to see Raz in there. Other than that,
not really. I mean, Mudryk with the concussion protocol, like I thought that was going to be like kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's the other left winger. Everyone was talking about Nkunku.
That's where I was pushing. I was hoping he would be able to, but that's fine. Like you're right with the concussion protocol, Mudryk. That obviously is relevant. I was hoping Nkunku, but
yeah,
Raz makes sense. He's fair.
There was a bunch of really good content published about injuries, especially coming back from injuries, what it would mean to start 2 games plus do training on the body. And, Nkunku's obviously, I think, only started like 2 or 3 games a season total, but it's the combination of having the midweek start and then the Sunday start that I don't think was necessarily reasonable for him at this point of the season. Now, obviously, we hope that he's able to start every single game next season and play every single minute next season. But I think it was a precaution. And who could blame anyone about the precautions after the terrible injury record that we've had this year? Like, I think that's why they were, wrapping Reece in cotton wool too, because it's simply too much to risk to put him through this injury protocol that we've heard so much about. So and I don't think Sterling's super fit right now either. Just the way that he kind of came off early in the second half. Brandon, this is a guy who hasn't played a ton of football in the last couple of months. Obviously, Mudryk's really had a run of games and has done varying degrees of whatever with those games that he got. But it looks like Raz was hungry for about the first half, and then I think it kind of fell off a little bit, just probably because he doesn't have the fitness.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. He delivered when we needed to. Doing really well on that left flank to get to the byline and smash that in, which, like I said, gave it to Raheem because it was an own goal essentially. So like creating that second one was super impressive. It's just, I was glad he ended on a high note, especially with some of the way the season has gone. I thought Cole Palmer, Dan, was probably the quietest match he's had in a while, but thankfully the people around him were able to step up. And maybe it's one of those things where they were double teaming him. And so he was actually a little bit more of a decoy. I was getting annoyed. He kept doing the faint right and then just do the half touch left. He kept overplaying to his left. And I mean, they just got clever to it pretty quickly.
He did get the assist on the day for the Raheem Sterling goal. So, I mean, I guess we shouldn't discount the fact that that's another goal plus assist contribution from Connor, even though he didn't walk away with a goal. There was the one shot that was a little off due to some weird interchange right into the start of the box that maybe he could have done better with. Maybe he could have gotten the ball a second and a half sooner. But look, first full season top flight football, to do what he did, to be the young player of the season for the Premier League, to be Chelsea's player of the season, the Chelsea's player of the season selected by the players. It's a phenomenal campaign. And I think in general, if this is the day where he needed others to step up to help out, as it is now, it was the last 60 minutes of the season, the last 45 minutes of the season, the last 20 minutes of the season, I think that's completely fine because he carried and backpacked this Chelsea team the majority of the way. So I'm okay with that, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, you kind of think about what a healthy squad means for the players who had to play the majority of the games this season, Cole being one of those players. Perhaps it wouldn't be out of line that he gets a match off here or there next year where he's able to rest up and maybe not, force himself into stretching and getting an extra injury or something like that. I just, you could tell the last few games of the season, it was catching up with him, Brandon. This is a guy who loves putting in a full shift, does not like coming off for a sub at all. Like he really looks disappointed to come off, and we love that for him. But it's a guy who desperately will need some time next year. Eden Hazard had to take a few matches off here or there, right? This is really intense football in the Premier League. And so I hope that the other players, your Nkunku's or Mudrik's or Sterling's or whoever, can spell him without there being a huge drop-off in performance. That's the critical piece.
So he's obviously done enough, won the awards, will continue to win the awards, all good on the day. So, I think as I kind of look at just, I don't know, I guess if we look at some of the top line stats, right, just to level set on this one, Chelsea with a commanding 61% possession, I think as you would expect, right? We had only a 0.99 XG, right, with 2 goals. So overperformed that aggressively.
Bournemouth, the Caicedo one was 0.02, and I'm guessing that 0.02 was a roundup from a 0.01 something, 15, 16, whatever it is. Like that actually registering with any type of XG related to it is ridiculous. That shouldn't work.
No, fair. I mean, you don't always see that. And there was a defender back there too. So it wasn't like it was a complete open net. But look, Bournemouth with 2.15. And I would imagine that Solanke miss right at the end is definitely weighing big on that. We each had 2 big chances. We had 16 shots. They had 22. Like Bournemouth, I thought like the early goal, they would chill, right? They didn't need to really fight for anything. They're firmly just below mid-table. They're good. No, they came out, thankfully, ineffectively shooting because they only had they definitely didn't cover themselves in glory in that sense. They hit the woodwork, that 13 shots off target, right? We had our 6 shots on target out of 16. We then had our 1 big chance scored, and they missed both of theirs. So, I mean, the fact that Petrovic had a few saves, right? He had 5 saves. Definitely wasn't nothing for them to do in the back defensively. Dan, the stats on SofaScore are all low for Benoit, Thiago, and Trevo. But I would say this was one of those days they really had to play ugly and just do what they had to do to move it versus, maybe have an easy day, high possession, look to play.
It was a really strong day for Trev. I mean, I think in general, we've seen him again playing and covering in our right back spot, showing positional versatility across center back and right back over this last run of games heading into the end of the season, heading into a period of time where Chelsea are going to be evaluating every player and saying, hey, are they a profit for us that we need to meet our financial requirements, or are they going to be a core part of our plans for next season? And to me, both Trev and Connor have made it very difficult for this Chelsea, hierarchy to think about selling either one of them in this, next couple of weeks as they look to close out the Premier League books season, which ends on the 30th of June. And, to your point around Benoit, really unfortunate that he gets the own goal with the Cucurella trip and creating the open space, and then bounces off his foot into the back of the net, which also is kind of bad for Petrovic, unfortunately. Like, he's gotten a couple of these like really interesting deflections that have not painted him too kindly for the total goals that he's allowed. And I think defensively, Nick, this was a little not as tight as it has been in the last couple of games. But again, we're playing a team actually in Bournemouth that is been in the ascendancy since the managerial switch earlier in the season. And their press was really, really good on the day. I mean, in general, like there's a lot of credit to the Bournemouth side too, who are not giving up.
No, certainly not. I mean, they are tricky to play against. I mean, their press is genuinely pretty good. It was much more effective than like Brighton's press, for example, midweek that, we easily kind of passed around and went on tons of counterattacks. We started off the game being able to break their press. I think they adjusted some things in the second half, and maybe we got a little leggy, and it wasn't so clear cut. There was space all game, but I thought their presses looked a lot more effective than Brighton's, for example. I would just say on Trev, Semenyo is a really, really, really tricky player to play against. He's big, powerful, extremely technically gifted, has a powerful shot on him. This is a guy that is, probably some finishing technique away from being like a really, really good player in the Premier League. And Trev showed him to the byline a bunch. I think Trev played him one-on-one incredibly well. You look at the entire team and the way that they kind of defended him cutting inside. I thought that was pretty decent. I don't think it was our best defensive day by any means, Brandon, but Bournemouth are not the pushovers of the Premier League. They're what, 11th, 12th they finished the season. I mean, they're better than the way that they actually will finish the league season.
Yeah, ended in 12th, but that's again more down to Crystal Palace's late surge in form than anything. So, yeah, it was a battle today, and I think that was good to see the team just scrap and battle. Nothing was, really given to the team. If SofaScore has the attack momentum, Bournemouth has a big swath in there from like the 25th minute until like the 55th minute, and then we were really good in the beginning. We had a nice little glimpse in the middle of the second half, but like other than that, they definitely did their best to try to cause some disruption. And the only place they were going to cause disruption was not in their situation, but it's going to be in ours. Like, we knew the table was going to be really, really interesting. We were obviously hoping Tottenham would drop to Sheffield. They did not, so they landed 5th. But Newcastle off to a hot start as well, right? Manchester United, they ended up going up. West Ham getting pummeled by City, so you knew they were kind of out of that as well. So the 3-team kind of race for 6th was very tight, and the announcers kept talking to the Chelsea match for in the US. Well, if Chelsea lose, then Newcastle jump up, and I was like, okay, what a great hypothetical, but we're currently winning. And so it was always that pressure, and that the sideline was communicating, and I'm sure they talked about at halftime, was like, win and be done. Just all you have to do is win, and we will be there. And the team got it done. But like, there was pressure, I think was where I'm going at, Dan, for this team going into this match. And they stepped up. I think that was good to see. There's moments we felt like this season when this team didn't have that fight. Maybe we dropped points to a lesser team, but it seemed like things were starting to click and they understood the importance of this. I mean, do you feel like these Chelsea players really care the difference between 6th or 7th? I think today they showed they did.
Well, when the difference potentially, if City does win the FA Cup, of playing in Europa League versus playing in Conference League, which is what we are currently playing in now, barring that decision. So that's huge. It's also huge for the club. It means, more money for potentially sponsors, because sponsors for Europa League clubs are going to want to pay more than people who are sponsoring Conference League teams. And so there's a lot of knock-on effect to this, and that affects things like player bonus structures, player compensation, all of that goes into it. And so I think even at an individual level, there is some care that goes into wanting to do well on that last day, wanting to be able to know that we pushed appropriately. And I think it was a leggier game than what we've seen, but that's also to the fact that Pochettino has been playing generally an unchanged 11 over this last set of games too. And so you are starting to see the end of the season come together, the little bit of the challenges of, I think the mental side of the game kind of showed up, but I can't be displeased. We finished 6th and we were 10th, 11th, or 12th the majority of the season. Like, this is a win.
It's huge for the players. Potentially, again, knock on wood, City win the final. I think we all have to caveat everything we talk about with Europa League to say they need to win. But huge for the players. Finish on 5 straight wins. That's a massive deal at the end of the year. And again, 4th best record since Boxing Day. Like, that's a big deal for this team. Really start to feel momentum going into the final day. And then, you think about what it means financially for Chelsea too. There's so much talk about where Chelsea are from a PSR perspective and all this sort of stuff. To get extra revenue into the club at this time is incredibly important. So yeah, it was a massive deal. I think everyone showed they cared.
Look, traveling for work and or play sometimes means getting to watch the games I want becomes a little bit more difficult than it should be, even though I'm already paying for all of the streaming services, including YouTube TV. When I went to Costa Rica, I couldn't watch it. So I needed NordVPN to watch Chelsea lose to Newcastle over Thanksgiving. But again, it was only made possible with our friends at NordVPN. So now that I don't have that problem anymore, just a few clicks, I'm up and running and able to watch everything I do safely and securely, even if I'm connected to a public Wi-Fi.
With 6,300 servers in 111 countries, it's easy to use. One-click connection allows me to safely access my content I want to watch on the go. The podcast travels quite a bit, and you may have seen us out on summer tour or in London, frequently visiting lots of different places. So the extra security is really nice when you travel.
So to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/LondonIsBlue. Our link will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan.
There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description. Of course, you can visit NordVPN/LondonIsBlue today.
So the question we're getting in chat definitely is about Thiago Silva. The Chelsea Supporters Trust just put out a tweet that said, came here winner, left a champion. Definitely elevating his status, which is beautiful. Had the tifo, like Dan mentioned at the top of the pod. It's hard when players are coming to the end of their time at a team. And obviously it was announced before, but even ahead of that, he was having some ups and downs of performances, wasn't really playing at times, got some injuries. But I think the way that this is ended and wrapped up over many weeks is the playbook for how to send a player off in the best possible way. I think him being able to play is a bonus because managers have to put the best 11 out there. And he was in there today, and that was good. But the videos, the messages, kind of like the preamble to the final match, Dan, was so well done. And it gave room for supporters to tell him how much he's meant to this club over the last 4 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to think about back to the Paris Saint-Germain sides we played against in the Champions League and thinking about Thiago Silva as a villain. And now to think about him as a beloved member of the tapestry of Chelsea's history, particularly European history, and being a part of the second Champions League campaign where Chelsea emerged victorious against City. He is etched permanently into what Chelsea is and what it means to win at Chelsea and to come to Chelsea and be a winner. And I think that is super helpful to almost from an advertisement standpoint to other players in periods of their career. If we have migrated off of we're only going to sign people who are 23 and younger, maybe now if I'm a 24-year-old or 27-year-old thinking about, hey, Chelsea could do this for me. I could come here. I can be successful. I can ingratiate myself with the supporters. I can build up a little bit of a status here, and I can come and win things, which is what he came to do and what we helped him accomplish. That's really, really fantastic. Our friend at the ground, Ollie Glanville, Nick, was even kind of posting right now that one of the things that he said in the send-off post-match is that his dream one day is that one of his sons will play for us, which is really, really incredible. Like, he's only been here 4 years. He's only been here 4 years. He's played just over, after this match, he'll be just shy or just above 12,500 minutes. And he is such a like, he's a top Chelsea player of all time.
Nick, Ollie Glanville just posted that the club did a guard of honor for Thiago as well. And like, now that just even goes to show you how much he means inside the club too. It wasn't just about him on the pitch. That was the kicker about Thiago.
I mean, yeah, it's been an emotional weekend. Can we just like say that? Emma Hayes goes off yesterday as a champion. Frank Kirby gets a goal in her final game for the club. Thiago Silva, the banners and tifos inside of the stadium, shouts always to the We Are the Shed group for putting a lot of that together. He's simply a Cadillac of a player, or a Rolls Royce, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. I think this is one of those things. I was kind of thinking back on it, right? And when we signed him, it was in the midst of, you remember the summer where we signed, it was like him and Kai Havertz and Timo Werner and all these guys. And like, it was almost like he was kind of like the afterthought in that summer of signings, not because he wasn't really important and all that sort of stuff, but because we had these big money signings that were coming in. And then you see the quality, you see the intensity, you see the leadership on the field, you see the way that he started to move our defenders around and all that sort of stuff. And I got really emotional last night thinking about what was going to happen today, because it was automatic, the connection with the fans. Like it took zero time whatsoever. And I think it was helped because Frank Lampard was the one that brought him in, right? And Frank Lampard, for all of the stuff you want to say about him as a manager, knew that this was the thing that we needed, right? We needed an experienced Champions League level defender, a guy who's played in multiple different leagues, who had a great record, came in, maybe didn't have the best start, really proved himself, and leaves a Champions League winner. And very, very proud that he's played for our club.
Yeah, no one has given him a contract that's at Chelsea pulling the strings at this point, at that age. That is moved on. Talking about, though, pulling the strings and setting everything up is the question out there from Jonathan Rose saying, are we ready to say goodbye to Conor Gallagher? Because that's happening, I'm afraid. So if we reframe it, Dan, it's more of, did we just see Conor's last match as a Chelsea player? He's got a year left, right? Matt seems to think he's going to take his time, Matt Law. Obviously, Conor's been the captain out of necessity for most of the season. Played a ton of minutes, stayed healthy when we needed him the most. Do you think he is moving on? You talked about financial priorities for the club this season as well, or this summer as well. They're going to be evaluating the squad.
I feel like it would be short-sighted to see Conor Gallagher off if you can acquire all of these sponsorships that your great hires in your commercial marketing department and your partnership teams, if they can't get the deals done to maximize Chelsea as an asset, whether it's the rumored Jordan deal, if we do get Europa, which would be fantastic, if it's a different front of kit sponsor that is going to pay us more than our existing kit sponsor of Infinite Athlete, if Infinite Athlete goes on to the sleeve and that generates more on a per year from rather than Bing X. I mean, there's so much money that should be out there for Chelsea to go claim, to not have to go sell players that have generally been healthy and available the vast majority of the season. And even if they are not a starter next year, that they are a key member as you go to add 20 additional games next season on top of what we played currently. We went deep in, we went to the semifinal in one competition. We went to the final in another competition. We, have 38 games of the Premier League season. That hasn't changed, or isn't changing yet, at least. And you add in all of our European games, and look, every time we've been in Europa League, we go and win it. So very likely that you're going to have a significant number of games that you're going to add to the calendar. And you're going to need players like Conor Gallagher and to contribute, at least from a rotational standpoint, if not being a starter next year. And again, we don't know how well Enzo's recovery is going to go. We have not seen anything out of Romeo Lavia. You may or may not bring back some midfielders. There's going to be a lot of questions about how you put together, how you construct this lineup over the summer, Nick, but it feels like Connor has all the leverage in the world now in terms of how he's played this season, his value to Pochettino, the likelihood that Pochettino, if he stays, is more likely than not going to be a advocate for keeping Connor if at all possible. It leads me to believe that I don't think we've seen the last match for Conor Gallagher at Chelsea. I don't think the odds are great, but I think it's more like the 55-45 stay. If you can get the financial deals done from a marketing side that help protect having to sell as many players as being reported.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it would take the emotion out of it, right? If you want to maximize the value of Moises Caicedo, which we have seen over the last 6 weeks, Conor Gallagher has to stay. He's a starter. He's captain. Reece James is not going to be in the team for the first 3 matches of the season because he did something stupid against Brighton, right? So he's captain of the team. He's been captain for the majority of the season. He has played some incredibly good football at times, some not so good football at times, but I think largely in this deeper lying role has really proved himself as a flexible, valuable asset to the team. Financially, it is stupid to sell him and go buy someone else. Like that math doesn't math. So that's taking the emotion out of it. Putting the emotion back into it, Brandon, he's one of us. He tries extremely hard every game. And there are multiple points of the season where a lot of other players were not giving their all. He was the one out there giving his all, pressing the ball, winning it back in dangerous situations, scoring winners. Like, he's a wonderful player who we need to keep in the team. I don't know any other way to say it. It would be so stupid for the sporting directors to let him leave.
I mean, the 2 clubs he's linked with are villains, Tottenham, which are, conveniently right above us in the table. But I can't imagine Connor thinking that Tottenham is a better home for him than Chelsea. Chelsea is literally his home. So they've got to get it figured out. The problem is we've seen that our sporting directors love a good flip of a homegrown. I think otherwise, any other situation, we wouldn't be as open to this conversation, but I don't think anyone's safe these days. And it is just one of those concerning things. I think Connor, as long as there's something, reasonable on the table, he will stay. But who knows if they're going to play it that way. But look, I think all supporters and fans know the value of Connor and want to see him stay. All right. I do think that the next one is obviously Poch. You ask most people after Arsenal 5-0, no shot. But if you ask us at the beginning of the season, we said top 6, we got top 6. Was it an easy way to get top 6? No. Did it hurt? Yes. But we got top 6 in the end. Things started to click in the end. They looked a little bit more like preseason because we had, for the most part, the team that we wanted out there when it was most critical. So I saw something on X about him and the staff going down the tunnel right away. I don't know if they came back out for the lap of honor or what in front of the Stamford Bridge faithful. There has been a little bit of talking, Dan, but regardless of all that, how do you feel about Poch and team and how this season went?
Well, so as we are recording this live on YouTube and chatting with the folks here, the press conference with Pochettino is underway, and there was a question about his future. And then he said, I don't know if the meeting is going to happen. On Friday night, Todd invited me for dinner, and it was a nice dinner together. I don't know about the rumors. My staff tomorrow are flying for the holidays. I'll stay in London for a few days. My phone will be on. And then in talking about the end of the season, I'm really happy because of the way we were in the process. We had difficult circumstances. We had the right idea to try and increase our levels and standards. The staff was fighting every day to provide the best tools. I think if you have any thought that Chelsea are going to be a competitive side in the Premier League next season, the thing that you want now is stability. You have had a season prior to this where we went through 3 managers. You had a season where you actually were able to maintain a manager for the entirety of the season. Now your squad wasn't healthy. And there definitely should be some questions about how Pochettino and his training methodology is put into place, the amount of soft tissue and repeat injuries that were occurring to players as they were trying to come out of their rehabilitation programs. There's a lot of things that I don't like about Pochettino. But what I do like is at the end of the season, when push came to shove, he was able to get the team going. The players were working for him. They were working to get a result and manufacture it. And while there are qualms I have about it, I need some stability. And this Chelsea team needs stability with players who are maturing, who are still 21, 22, 23. Just some of them completed their first adult Premier League season. Like, why blow it up again? And unless there's an immediate upgrade. And like, Roberto De Zerbi is not an immediate upgrade. There's no immediate upgrade out there that you're going to acquire at this moment who's going to give you the value of what the stability is going to be, Nick. And so I think in general, that's where my head is. Like, you keep Poch, you keep yourself open to a conversation at the middle and end of next season. But I think at this point, the stability is actually more important to me. What he showed at the end of the season, I didn't love the way we played in the cup final. I think that was on him. I don't like the way that we played in the semifinal, but I think that was more on the players. And so on the bounce of it, we got into 6. We got into one cup final, probably could have won. Got into a semifinal, probably should have gotten to a final. I don't know. I mean, generally good enough to get a second season.
Is it okay to just be exhausted by manager changeover and just want to
Sure
hang out on the same guy for 2 years? Like, I don't know. The thought of a new manager is exhausting to me. I don't necessarily want that. I think if you go back to what we said at the beginning of the season, what was the kind of the minimal acceptable threshold, right? It was 6th place. That was the threshold. Now we've done that, and we don't know if that 6th place is going to be good enough for Europa League or Europa Conference League. That is kind of out of our hands at this point, right? But I think on balance, if you say that at the beginning of the season, you see the way that the team fought through a bunch of adversity and probably learned some incredibly hard lessons along the way. You see the way they speak about him. Like, I just don't. I think it would be silly at this point to, consider a changeover unless you have the second coming of Pep Guardiola ready to go, which I don't think exists out in the world right now. So, this is, to me, Brandon, a no-brainer at this point, not because he's my favorite Chelsea manager of all time or because I have a huge amount of affection or whatever, but like, I'm tired of the change. I want there to be some stability, and I want him to get another year with hopefully a healthy team to really show us what's possible with his management.
If you look at what prompted the change with Graham Potter, we're nowhere near that. It felt like at times during the season, but when you look back collectively, that we weren't there. So that's kind of where I'm approaching it for as well. This stability, you've got young players. If you continue to chop and change, that is detrimental to their cohesion in growing. But the thing is always of getting that, getting the results across the line. And I would say the Chelsea manager spot is not in the top 3 of the priorities for the ownership group, and that they should focus on the other things. Commercial revenues, right? The medical department, Emma Hayes' replacement. Those are things to me that are far more important and impactful. Look, they just came out and said they have a 10-year vision on it now. So I've just punted on that. They clearly, nothing's going to happen soon. So at least how about this for next season, right? I would put those 3 things firmly above moving off a Poch or something like this. So I still think there's some people, and I feel like maybe both of you have said you're lacking some convincing in areas and things like that. And I think that's fair. It's not important enough. We need to focus on the other things. For anyone that tried to connect De Zerbi to this job, shame on you. Shame on you.
So there are 2 other quotes from Pochettino after the press conference. One, which I think will get called upon because anytime someone does something and there's no context behind it, it's going to cause uproar. So he did not address the fans at full time. He went straight down the tunnel. He said Adrian, the press officer, basically told him to go immediately, like down the tunnel. So maybe unfortunate on a communication front because, you should get an opportunity as a manager to go do that. second one being that on the season, Pochettino saying, I'm so pleased and proud of the players that play less because they're injured. I think it was nice at the very end, the lap of honor. I feel so proud with the way that they are working, even in the tough moments. They always showed they respected us and believing the way that we present their jobs. This is part of the positive thing that Pochettino can leverage the press for, which is creating unity, building up the players, celebrating him. Again, very rarely I can count 2 or 3 times that he was very pointed in the way that he pressed on the players as a group, not as individuals over the course of the season. And in general, when he was speaking about players individually, it was always about how they improved, their importance to the side, their value to the team. And so that's another thing, definitely on the man management side, very positive thing for him to have and to kind of continue forward as building this team, building this culture, building an identity, Nick, for next season.
I will say, we don't know what's going to happen. We're not soothsayers here. We're not going to predict the future, but assuming he does stay for next season, one thing that he definitely needs to get better at is a rapport with the fans. Like, it's not the most important thing. It's certainly, I would take results over rapport any day. But if you really want to ingratiate yourself with the club, like doing a lap around the stadium after the last game is not too much to ask, right? Whether he was directed to or not, like, this isn't his only final game that he's ever done. It seems ridiculous to me that couldn't happen. And, he deserved to be clapped today. He deserved, a round of applause from a bunch of people who maybe didn't necessarily love where the team was at certain points this season. And, I would have liked that for him, and I would have liked him to show the love back to the fans who stuck with this team through some difficult patches. It just seems incredibly silly. There have just been some own goals this year in press conferences and the way that he's reacted after big matches and stuff, that there's just some weirdness there that I hope gets solved, because it does. A lot of Chelsea fans really put a lot of stake in that sort of Conte-esque connection where he swan dives into the fans, or the Jose Mourinho lovers out there who hang on his every word. Like, it matters, and he has to get better at it to, I think, really ingratiate himself.
One thing that clicked at the end was Cucurella, someone who's driven supporters and fans crazy at times. Had a really good end of the season with this inverted fullback in possession to overload the midfield. One thing I'm wondering about for next season, Dan, is like Chilwell. He seems to be much more of a bombing winger versus come inside and be technical. I don't know how that'll kind of shake out, but that is something that we have to give Poch credit for, and to maybe figure out. He eventually found the best way to use Cucurella, who, to be fair, it was quite tidy, in the last bit of the season. Now, picked up a hilarious yellow card today for getting thrown to the ground after kicking the ball near Bournemouth player.
Don't you dare injure a blade of grass on that pitch, because Anthony Taylor's coming for you. Don't you dare actually go to ground when your foot gets stamped on and expect a penalty. Anthony Taylor's going to get you. Anthony Taylor on the day had the biggest main character energy of anyone inside of Stamford Bridge, on a day where Thiago Silva is playing his last game in the Premier League and for Chelsea, on a day where maybe or maybe not Mauricio Pochettino was wondering about his future, when we were thinking about what could or couldn't happen for Conor Gallagher, on a day where Dom Solanke is coming back and potentially wants to score a goal against his former side to show him what you could have had. Anthony Taylor made himself the center of the narrative per usual in this game. And that Cucurella yellow was ridiculous. The way that Thiago had to go up and complain about Anthony Taylor's decisions was ridiculous. And yeah, I know, Nick, we want to talk about Cucurella, but I just have to put it out there because I know you agree with me and Chelsea supporters agree. Anthony Taylor in general is pretty poor at his job and had a very, very bad day. And it could have been 2 penalties. It could have been so much worse for Bournemouth if this game was officiated even half correct.
He's an idiot. I mean, he is a true idiot. This dude should never referee a Chelsea game again. We've said that before. It is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. it wasn't just the penalties either. When you look at the way that he refereed this game, he let so much go from a contact perspective and would call the silliest little fouls. Like there were times where bodies were all over the floor and he would wave play on as if nothing had happened to put those bodies there. And then there would be like a tiny little nudge and that's a foul. And you're like, what, man? Come on. It's like, how do you referee a game like that? I've never understood him. I've never understood his style. The first penalty on Sterling is Stonewall. He clatters into him. The ball is still by Sterling, so I don't understand how it could be seen any other way. Like it's insane to me. So whatever. He's an idiot. I don't like Anthony Taylor. Good riddance, and hopefully, he continues to perform subparly so that he can get demoted or whatever they're going to do with referees next season.
But with Cucurella, to get back to the initial point of Brandon's question, again, after he so terribly injured Grass, he's going to have an interesting summer. I think Chilwell's interesting summer. Sam and I talked about it, CFC Central, on the preview podcast, that left back is likely an area where Chelsea will go to market, even as Ian Maatsen gets ready to play, most likely in a Champions League final, as Lewis Hall was scoring this past week for Newcastle against Manchester United, that Chelsea may want to figure out if there's a different alternative option there. I don't know and don't think there's a market for either of Ben Chilwell or Marc Cucurella at the moment that would be the right amount for either. And so I think in general, you're probably advancing forward with them, as Sam mentions here, that his man got turned into a Beyblade with the challenge and tackle to the ground. It definitely was, I think there's still a lot to hope for and a lot to desire from Cucurella's overall play. There are times where he is terribly out of position. There are times where he is able to get back and throw in a pretty impressive challenge. It's so interesting. I don't know if he's a complete game player, but he definitely has some moments where he just like can battle off 5 to 10 minutes of really great play and then take time off. And I don't know if he's consistent enough to be the all and out starter for a full Premier League and European campaign season.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say this too. Like in possession, Cucurella is a real asset. Out of possession is where I get worried. Obviously, for those who are blaming Badiashile for the goal today that was scored against us, no, that's Cucurella. Cucurella got shifted out of position and was not available to make a block on something that wasn't really even like a great bit of skill, Brandon. This was a normal move to cut inside. He shouldn't have been so easily duped. And there's the comment from Wicked Brew that he was 90% perfect today. I thought that he did a lot of really great stuff, but it's moments like that where you do worry about him, right? Especially against technical players. He's improved some this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But is he like the next best left back we have? I don't know.
Well, it just depends on what system Poch wants to play, how they want to approach it next season, because he has two very different players. Obviously, Chilwell, a much, much bigger goal threat, but he's been out long term. So you got to get him back in firing, because we know how absolutely quality he is when he's at full fitness. So yeah, it'll be interesting. But from 4 left backs down to 2, because obviously Lewis Hall definitely go to Newcastle, and Ian Maatsen is definitely not coming back to Chelsea, especially getting to a Champions League final on a loan. Not bad. Yeah, I remember the days when we had way too many left backs, including Marcos Alonso. Wasn't it this season that Cucurella was going to go on loan to like United or something? Was that this season or last?
That was the beginning of this season.
Yeah.
There was an injury crisis that they had at United, and he was rumored to go, and then they picked up Reguilon. And obviously that didn't work out because now Reguilon's at Brentford. But it's been a weird old year for Cucurella. Had the ankle surgery, was out for 3 months, comes back and ends up playing a hybrid left back midfield role and looks really, really comfortable in midfield, by the way. Like looks extremely competent there, able to quickly move the ball, but that's not what we pay him to do. We pay him to play pay him to play left back. So we'll see if that works.
One thing that has come out quite aggressively, thanks to our boy Matt Law, that we should probably touch on. This was yesterday, but already the fact that the ownership group and the sporting directors have decided that they're going to go to Brazil and picked up 17-year-old
Again.
Esteval Willian, right? And so they are continuing after Andres Santos and continuing to shop in that market. Another young player, not one for today, one for the future. Kind of reminds me of, well, I guess I'm not going to make comparisons, but it shows the intent of this group is to continue to, look above, like at the next, multiple years. I'm at least happy that we're able to go get deals done in Brazil because it's a highly competitive market. And the fact that they see Chelsea as a good home for them, I think is impressive. I don't know much about him. I don't know, Dan, if you've talked to Sam about him. I know Sam's already said he's got threads and things ready to go, but yeah, Esteval, highly, highly touted.
Highly touted. I mean, Kendry and Esteval actually played a match against each other recently, which was good viewing for the neutral, exciting viewing as you think about Chelsea's future at this point with the deal being confirmed by Fabrizio and Matt. I think this is more like the turning our eyes towards the summer now, turning our eyes to the fact that, we saw Chelsea try to sign Elise at the beginning of the season, and that doesn't happen due to some tapping up concerns and some potential writing to the Premier League about nefarious attempts to acquire his signature. Boy, oh boy, he would have been a transformative element in our attack as well. I think this kind of maybe signals that doesn't happen this summer. If you now have Santos, if you have Kendry, if you have Esteval, and all these others now lining up, you probably have no ability to move Mudryk out on a value that makes him a positive on your book. You may have some level of accounting flexibility to move on Madueke and record some type of profit. You feel really good about your acquisition of Cole Palmer already paying dividends. You feel very good about Nico Jackson and how he can contribute in the next season. And you're still likely going after an additional striker, some type of 9. But there are, I think, a lot of questions about now what is going to be the summer as it looks for Mykhailo Mudryk, for Noni Madueke. You have Nkunku coming back finally healthy and able to contribute. Like, we do have a pathway for some of our attackers, but not all of these. And I think that, Nick, is the challenge now as we kind of look in towards our keep, sell, loan season. Like, there's going to be a lot that we have to kind of get into and a lot of tough decisions on some of these players.
A lot of tough decisions. I think this will be one of the more interesting keep sell loans that we do, and just wanted to quickly shout out our end of season normal rotation on the podcast for those who are maybe new. We'll do end of season specials and awards for the men, women, and academy seasons. So those will be a bunch of pods coming up. And then, of course, the often imitated, never replicated or duplicated keep sell loan, where we'll go through every position group, kind of give our assessment on each player, where they are, where we expect them to be next season, all that sort of stuff. So if you're listening to us on YouTube for the first time, stick around. It's going to be a lot of really good stuff happening. I think you really look at where we are right now, and there's so much on the right wing. You kind of worry about imbalance, I think, a little bit. A really interesting one for the keep sell loan, if money wasn't an object, is what's due with Sterling, and what's going to happen there. If you go after a 9, what happens to Jackson? Does Jackson become a left winger? Potentially, if you go after a 9, and does he occupy that territory? Because we've seen him do that really well this season. He clearly has the pace to make it. There's a lot of really critical decisions to put forward, and a ton of players whose value has increased this season with the way they've played. Nico for sure. I think Madueke for sure. I think the way that you look at Cole Palmer, he's now a £100 million+ player, basically in one season. Conor Gallagher's values increased, all this sort of stuff. But there are some that haven't quite done that as well. And so you're going to have to really take some really acute financial measurements to make sure that you stay within PSR.
Well, I mean, that's part of it. Sell some shirt sponsors. That'll help, right?
Sure.
Got to get it done in time. You know, anything we do before the end of June counts for this season. That is what we referenced earlier, and this is what is the concern and the problem. But they're gonna have to balance it. They're gonna have to look ahead. If you know, Swiss Ramble's concerned, right? But then you talk to the the ownership group, and they seem to be far less concerned. They sold the hotels essentially to themselves. They're looking at potentially doing it with Cobham. At some point we need to kind of get all the foundations built, right? Season ticket prices going up. Was it 5%? So an extra cost for those that go every single week in, week out. There are easier ways to grab revenue. Have you not? And this isn't to pick on them, but it is a bit silly. You guys been on the Chelsea FC desktop site lately?
No.
No.
Shall I give it a try?
Banner ads at the bottom pop up, right? So I'm getting a Disney Plus bundle ad as I'm trying to.
What type of ad blocker are you using? Come on, this is 2024. What are you doing?
It's not the point. The point is that we are doing pop-up ads on ChelseaFC.com.
Get you an ad blocker like Trev Chalobah, my man.
Again,
come on.
The problem is that we are penny pinching on pop-up ads instead of selling a big-time kit sponsorship. That's my point.
They're making tens of dollars on that. Don't you worry about it.
Exactly. That's how bad it is. We've gone to the easiest, laziest place to generate revenue because the big pieces are missing. That's my point.
Yeah.
So I want to highlight the fact that Chelsea will be off now for 66 days because as of time of recording, we are 66 days away from the start of preseason in terms of the matches being played when Chelsea take on Wrexham in Santa Clara, where the 49ers, the NFL team, play and get started with a multi-city, multi-state campaign. And so there's a lot of work that will need to get done. I think it's why we talked about Pochettino as a stability situation, from getting a new manager in over 66 days and getting them set and ready in time with the squad. Not good if you want to go actually win the Europa League as long as we get in, or win the Conference League if the worst possible thing happens and United do something really silly. It's going to come quick. I mean, we have the Euros, Nick. You'll be at a game. We have Copa America. We have so many international competitions, the Olympics, that are going to require a lot of players to be in a lot of places and put a lot of miles and extra minutes on their body. And the only thing we should hope for now is stability and player health heading into July so that we can go tackle the start of the next season.
That's it. Everyone get healthy. Everyone, whatever the training regimen is, follow that. You know, you hope to see players come back with a different mentality than last season, which was, you know, we were there for almost every preseason game in the States. It was a lot of running, a lot of hard work. It looked really draining. You know, we've also seen Chelsea teams come back raring to go, right? Serious mentality switched on. This is a big season for us. If knock on wood, we play in Europa League, the Europa League winner gets a ticket to next year's Champions League, right? So that's a straight line to the promised land where we want to get back to. Take this incredibly serious. And especially if you're a player on the bubble, Brandon, who may not be a locked-in starter next year, may not know exactly what their future will hold or how many minutes they'll get, the best way to ensure that you're going to be a part of the plan is to have an amazing preseason, is to show that you're available and ready to go, especially when some of the, you know, more seasoned internationals are away. Make yourself known that you can be counted on. And how many times have we seen that? Trev Chalobah is one example of that, right? Right after we win the Champions League, a lot of players are out on internationals or taking a break or whatever. He has a killer preseason, comes in and starts straight away. Thomas Tuchel trusts him straight away, scores a goal on his first in his first match, and has a great start to his official Chelsea career. So this is the opportunity for players who are on the bubble to really come in preseason and do a job. It is 66 days away. We have so much content to cover, transfer rumors. CFC Central obviously commenting there that he has a little PTSD right now. But I think it's, you know, one, City just win this FA Cup so we can all rest a little easier. and 2, like we have some fun problems to solve for if that's the case.
Well, again, it seems like there's never a down moment, right? With this team, we just played 38 Premier League matches, already talking about the next things are going to happen, already talking about the preseason and things like that, because it is constant. So what I would say is definitely find your break, Chelsea fans. Like, find your moment to enjoy kind of where we landed. Super impressive, I would say. Based on the way the season ended, very much on a hard positive upswing. So I think that was great. Definitely wasn't how we thought it was going to go in the middle of the season. That is for sure. So overall, I think plenty to be pleased with. I don't think too many fans are leaving saying, "Hey, best season ever." But my big thing is definitely the young age of this squad. I do feel like they grew a lot over the season. There's a lot of hard lessons that were learned, but to see the improvements of Nico Jackson, to see the improvements of even Caicedo, which had a big price tag, to see the back line just be resilient. And also, we're playing a former MLS goalkeeper in the Premier League right now, in Georgia Petrovic. There's a lot that went on this season, and that also includes a new manager and things like that. So with that much change in things, like, I think there's a lot to be excited for, but the level has to be higher. We can't regress. And that's obviously the big thing. So I don't know, Dan, like, quick, obviously we're going to elaborate more on this with our end of season stuff, but like, what are your kind of initial thoughts on the season?
Look, tempered this season. We were forged some of these players in the fire and have come out looking better for it as purchases that maybe had question marks around them. There's still a jury out on others. And the fact that we're ending the season with less uncertainty than we did last season, where it was Frank Lampard is ending the season as a pitch hint for the ownership to carry out the last set of games where we had a lot of players with huge question marks. The fact that we're going in with a little more solidity, with better health position than we had for the majority of the season, I think leads me to feel very optimistic about what's coming this summer, with a couple pluses and minuses in terms of the squad to improve it overall, with maintaining stability from a manager position to hopefully having a strong summer tour, even though I think it is a little too chaotic in terms of the amount of cities and the amount of mileage that they're going to put on their bodies after all the other travel that they're going to do this summer. That in general, I'm feeling good about where we're heading with this Chelsea team heading into next season at this point. So you wish again that this had come 10 weeks earlier and Chelsea had 10 more weeks of the goodness we saw in the last 5, but that's looking too much at the past of it, Nick. So I think in general, I'm happy with where we're going. I could see light at the end of this tunnel now, and I can see a path forward, whereas in December that didn't feel likely. And so that's a good place to be.
Yeah, if we had 3 or 4 more matches, I'm pretty sure we would surpass Tottenham, no problem, and even put some pressure on Villa. Again, that's not the way the season works. So it's just a testament that you have to take all the opportunities that are given to you, right? If you would have told me 4 weeks ago this is where we'd finish, I would have not believed you. And there was a really dark timeline where Arsenal were going to win the title and we were going to finish in 8th and it was going to be awful and all that sort of stuff. And none of that happened. Arsenal lose again. Wonderful. Don't get the title. And that makes me incredibly happy. Chelsea just barely finished behind Spurs. And I think like on merit are a better team at this point than Spurs are. And next season is really about pushing forward. Right. So I think the overall attitude, Brandon, from where I'm at is, okay, you did the minimum viable thing. And it was really hard, and it shouldn't be taken away from anyone how hard it was. You have to kick on from here, though. You have to take this really hard mentality into next season and go, we're going to be in 4 competitions, right? Whether it's the Conference League or the Europa League, there's going to be a ton of matches to play. There are going to be a ton of players who need to level up their game. How do we do that? How do we get to the Champions League next season? That's it.
100% back on the biggest stage. Gonna need a couple key signings as always. Gonna be some crucial personnel decisions, both in the, I would say kind of support areas of the club just as much as on the pitch as well. But hey, we can end on a 5-match win streak, some guaranteed Europe. All right, 1 match away from finding out exactly where we are. So yeah, ton more content as always. Chelsea fans, we're super excited. For those of you joining us on YouTube Live right after the match, this was definitely a fun new thing that we've tried and done this season. So continue to do more. But yeah, enjoy your celebratory weekend. Women winning their 5th title in a row. Men a little bit different, but it's also our 5th win in a row. So excited to send Emma Hayes out. So yes, big win or weekend for the Chelsea family. So anyways, appreciate you all. And until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.